Good morning. You're tuning into the Board of County Commissioners Agenda Setting Work Session. It is Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022. It is 9:03 a.m. This meeting is a hybrid meeting. For public virtual attendance, you may follow along on the Thurston County YouTube channel. My name is Carolina Mejia. I am the chair of the board. I'm joined today by Vice Chair Ty Menser in the boardroom and Commissioner Gary Edwards. County Manager Ramiro Chavez, as well as Assistant County Manager Robin Campbell, and many other staff members joining us via Zoom. So today we'll start our agenda with our COVID-19 update. And I see Dr. A. Go ahead.
Good morning. Today is day 786 of our COVID-19 response here in Thurston County. To date in Washington State, there have been 1,446,845 COVID-19 cases since the pandemic began, and 12,355 COVID-19 deaths in Washington State since the pandemic began. Here in Thurston County, we have had 46,227 cases and 399 COVID-related deaths here in Thurston. 2,201 Thurston County residents have been hospitalized to date. To date, we've had 186 congregate care outbreaks and are currently following 12 congregate care outbreaks. Our 14-day rate of new COVID-19 cases per 100,000 of population is currently 105.8 cases per 100,000 over 14 days, which is significantly reduced. At this time in Thurston County, there are 10 hospitalized patients that have tested positive for COVID-19. We do have some bed capacity available in our hospitals, with 81% of the ICU beds being full, and 96.5% of acute care beds being full at this time on our metrics. In terms of vaccination, 507,284 COVID-19 vaccination doses have been given to Thurston County residents, and 71.8% of our total population here in Thurston have initiated vaccination with at least one dose. Thurston County continues to support, so Thurston County Public Health continues to support this effort through testing. So in terms of COVID-19 testing, today, we will be testing at Rochester. Tomorrow we'll be testing at 3811 Pacific Avenue in Lacey, Thursday at Union Gospel Mission, and Friday at Evergreen State College. We do continue to offer COVID-19 vaccinations at our mall clinic, as well as have some ability to support homebound Thurston County residents with COVID-19 vaccine, as well as help support facilities within our county in terms of long-term care who request COVID-19 vaccination for their residents as well. Overall, our COVID-19 cases are downtrending. Our hospitalization rates are for individuals who've tested positive for COVID-19 are low. We are watching and looking at the BA, so Omicron is the BA.1 variant. There is a BA.2 subvariant that, based on our preliminary data, doesn't have a significant safety signal, meaning that we haven't, in countries where there's been significant transmission, we haven't seen an increase in severe illness or deaths, but we continue to watch and learn about that. But it is more infectious than the Omicron variant. So last week, when we spoke, we discussed low rates of the BA.2 variant in Washington State. Based on our most recent sequencing data released last Wednesday, for which ends with the week ending on March 5th, a little bit less than 10% of sequenced sequenced tests showed the BA.2 variant in Washington State. So we continue to watch the situation closely and monitor, both situations in terms of number of cases reported to us, number of cases in settings where folks are testing regularly, as well as the incidence of outbreaks in our county. And with that, I'm open to any questions you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Question, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, when we're doing the testing that we're doing over at the mall or wherever it may be, how long does it take to get the answer back for the person that is tested?
So in general, we're looking at the 2 to 4 day window. And I can reach out to our team to get the specific number. It does vary based on how many tests are being processed at a given time.
No, okay, but it's not the 20-minute return or something. It's the couple of days, basically.
So at our testing site, we primarily use PCR testing, which does have to go to a lab and then has a lab processing piece to it. In terms of
Did she freeze or did I?
She did.
I think
She did. She's like,
you froze up, doctor.
I apologize for that. In general, we are able to provide PCR tests to the general community. And community members, of course, have access to rapid testing through over-the-counter tests.
The testing that we do for our employees that are tested once a week, is that the 20-minute result, or is that also sent off to a lab?
My understanding at this point in time is that it's a PCR test, which would require a lab.
So they don't get an answer for 2 or 3 days either.
At this point, I would definitely refer to.
yes, we can, doctor, I can probably answer that. I think it's a combination. It's a rapid PCR test, but I can give you the details as to when. The employees don't have to wait for 2 or 3 days. It's sooner than that. It's a different type of testing. I believe it does not go to the lab. But I'll give you the details.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer?
I don't have any questions. I just point out for the public that we have a Board of Health meeting today at 3:30 or somewhat thereafter, and a more in-depth discussion of these issues will happen at that meeting.
Yes, I'm hoping that it's shortly soon thereafter, 3:30. We do have 2 public hearings, so thank you for being optimistic, Commissioner Menzer.
Yep.
Okay, I don't have any questions. With that, we'll go on to our next item, which is homeless strategies.
Keely Myrno is not going to be able to join us this morning. Tom, would you like to provide some feedback today?
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Webster. I don't really have an update for you today. As Miro said, Keely is out today. Just quickly, I will say we met with Live Storage yesterday and Rent Assistance, and we are moving forward with transitioning rental assistance activities with Live Storage. So I'm pleased with the progress there. We'll have more information for the public as that becomes available.
Questions for Tom? Commissioner Edwards?
No, I might just note that I'm disappointed the city of Olympia does not seem to care about this whole homeless junkyard looking operation on Highway 101. I mean, that's been going on for months now. And just, I might point out, you know, it's hard to take the city seriously when they don't bother to even clean up a starting junk pile. So I just make that as a note. Thank you very much.
Can I have an answer to that? There was, I believe that belongs to DOT, does it not, Tom? That's what you've been working with DOT about?
Yeah, we did reach out to DOT and ask them to look into that. I have not, so I've had initial contact with DOT. They said they were going to go out and take a look. They were backlogged. If it was something they could clean up, they did mention that they had a several months backlog of sites around the state that they were working to clean up. So I can continue to follow up with them to see if there's any updates. But their first was to investigate whether anyone was actually staying at that location before they would clean it up. They did indicate if there was someone staying there, they would reach out to the city of Olympia regarding that.
Thank you, Tom. I would also like to add that this was discussed actually at the mayor's meeting on Friday. And all the mayors and I as the chair signed a letter to the governor, which was timely because the legislature did pass additional funding to DOT specifically for these cleanups. So Commissioner Edwards, I believe that will be addressed hopefully sooner rather than later. But all of the mayors signed on to that letter, basically urging Governor Inslee, to provide that additional funding to DOT so they could do those cleanups.
Thank you.
And Ramiro, do you mind forwarding on that letter to the commissioners?
I did
Okay.
last week. Yeah.
Okay.
I saw the letter, and I appreciate it very much.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any questions for Tom, Commissioner Menser?
I don't have any questions. I just point out on that point about the trash, there's been cleanup in Lacey, I've noticed. There's piles of garbage bags that have been filled and are waiting to be taken away all up and down Lacey. So nothing in Olympia. So I'm not sure Lacey got up to the top of the list, but
On the states right away?
yeah.
Oh. Okay, so
But
they're probably working
I'm hoping they're
each
working
of
their way
down.
south, and we'll see, because Olympia, has not been touched, it looks like, but I saw a lot of cleanup work done on both sides of the I-5 in Lacey area.
Well, it
So
was
good letter, thank you.
It was an anecdotal conversation from the city of Olympia on the exit. I think it's 105 that goes to the state capitol. I believe the governor was traveling to the state legislature and saw a significant amount of garbage. So the governor's office called the city of Olympia, asking them to clean. And unfortunately, the city of Olympia stated that's the state's right away. So the story goes, the state DOT cleaned that up the day after. So I think the governor is well aware of the issues of litter on states' highways.
There's actually new signage too about keep Washington litter free or whatever. There's some sparkly new signs kind of in between the Olympia Lacey border. So they're working on it
And
apparently.
there's a significant amount of more money to DOT to deal with the cleanup and this.
Hopefully more to go.
Okay, with that, if there are no more further questions, thank you, Tom. I don't have any questions either. We'll move on to review the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting of March 22nd, 2022. With that, we'll call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Vice Chair Menser. Approval of the Tuesday, March 22nd, 2022 agenda, and approval of the board meeting minutes from March 15th, 2022. Any questions in regards to any of those items?
No, ma'am.
No.
At 2:05, we'll have a presentation, and it's the proclamation for Women's History Month. County Manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your consideration is to proclaim March 2022 as Women's History Month in Thurston County. This particular item was on your agenda last week, and the board decided to move it over for today's consideration. We can have members of our community participate on this proclamation. I will ask Amy to give us a little more perspective as to who we're planning to have this afternoon. Members of our committee.
Good morning, Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. Members of the Zonta Club are planning to attend this afternoon to accept the proclamation.
Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menzer?
No, good.
With that, we'll move on for the opportunity for the public to address the board.
Yes, you probably you received some public testimony this afternoon. You received a copy of documentation this morning from a citizen. That may be the source of this public testimony this afternoon. We'll distribute that after this meeting. Nothing urgent.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Okay. County manager's update.
Yeah, you received a couple of testimonies from Mr. John Pettit. The result of that conversation, the prosecuting attorney's office is reaching out to Mr. Pettit to get additional information based on the claims that he stated last Tuesday. So I will not be addressing that this afternoon as the prosecuting attorney's office is following up with him. Related to the public testimony that Mr. Esther Connenberg provided, and she provided testimony related to a federal case. She introduced herself as the member of the
League of Women Voters.
League of Women Voters. And she followed up with an email clarifying that she was not representing that. So I hope you received that email clarifying her testimony. There is nothing that I will follow up based on what she provided. Also, Mr. Jerry Durker provided testimony as well. And there is nothing at this point that I need to follow up based on his testimony. That's all I have. I do have another item later on your agenda that I'd like to touch base as part of public testimony that was not provided to you last Tuesday. It's a series of emails that we have received over the last few days that I'll touch base on the nature of those emails and what I perceive to be the issue. So later on your agenda.
Okay. Questions, comments? Okay. With that, we'll go through consent items. There's only three. First one, 3A, Human Resources Resolution to adopt a classification and create a position.
Thank you, Madam Chair. During the 2022-2023 biennial budget, the board authorized a new position in public health and social services. That position was the medical assistant, and that is included in the budget. However, we didn't have an actual classification that describes what the medical assistant will be. So staff has worked with human resources and developed this classifications. For your consideration is to approve the medical assistant classification and the job description within. In the salary for this particular position, the range is from $3,464 to $4,607 per month. And again, this is a follow-up to the board's decision in approving this position on the biennial budget.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer?
No.
Okay, thank you. Next item, 3B, appointment to the Solid Waste Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for your consideration is to appoint Ms. Elaine Clam, and she is a city representative from the city of Tenino to the Thurston County Solid Waste Advisory Committee. Her term is going to be from March 2022 to March 2025. I believe Ms. Elaine Clam is a newly elected city council member for the city of Tenino. And as you know, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee has representations from the jurisdictions within the Thurston County, and the representation is for the most part as an elected county city council member. And Jeff is here to answer any questions.
Good morning, Commissioners. I did not have anything else to add to that. I think the county manager spoke well to the point.
Thank you, Jeff. Questions, Commissioner Edwards,
No, ma'am, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer?
No, thanks.
No questions for me either. Okay, next item is the voucher list for the week of March 7th, 2022. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, we'll move on to department items. Item 4A from the auditor's office, set a public hearing to change precinct boundaries due to redistricting.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. As a result of the redistricting that occurred at the state level as a result of the 2020 census, the auditor's office provided a briefing to the board maybe 2 weeks ago, where they're proposing changes to precinct boundaries to align to those changes that occurred at the state level. The result of that is adding 9 precincts, repealing 2 precincts, which they are absorbed by other precincts, and 37 precincts with boundary line adjustments. And also included in this is changing the legal description for the Board of County Commissioners districts. In essence, this is just adjusting to the changes that we have faced at the state level. So the next step in the process is to for you to hear public testimony related to those proposed precinct boundary changes, and for your considerations to set a public hearing for Tuesday, April 12, 2022 at 3 in the afternoon or soon thereafter. In this particular public hearing, if the board approves, will be a hybrid in-person as well as via Zoom.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Yes, does this change in boundaries affect the state legislative districts or our congressional districts?
Is the reverse. The state changed those, and we are adjusting the precincts to align to those changes the state approved.
So everything will be up to date now when we do this. Thank you.
Correct.
Okay, Commissioner Menzer, questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, and I don't have any questions on that. Okay, moving on to community planning and economic development, item 5A, grant agreement for Washington State Department of Agricultural Affairs Program grant.
Yeah, you also reviewed this item last week, commissioners, and this is related to a little bit of history. What we call this the signature project at the Thurston County Fairgrounds. The board set aside $250,000 from the real estate excise tax to contribute to this signature project. Staff provided a briefing as to what this project is intended to do. It really has a long-term strategy to build a new building eventually that provides additional functions to the fairgrounds. So this particular phase 1 of the project is to demolish some of the structures that we have in order to facilitate future construction of that. So the total current project cost is just about $503,000. And if we start with the real estate excise tax allocation of $250,000, the financial plan included a grant from the Washington State Department of Agriculture for $250,000. So this particular item for your consideration is to accept the grant from the State Department of Transportation, Agriculture for $250,000 to complement the phase 1 of this project. Jeremy Davis is here to answer any questions about additional perspective.
Thank you. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Madam Chair, I do not have anything to add to the county manager's summary of that. I do want to note that Director Cummings will be at the board meeting this afternoon to present the item.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menzer?
No questions.
Okay, I don't have questions either. Thank you. Okay, and then item 5B, set a public hearing for proposed condemnation.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. This is a new item for your consideration this afternoon. You did not have the chance to review this item last week, but you're well familiar with the item before you. And this is related to the L.P. Brown Elementary. It's a property near the school where it has been a nuisance property for quite some time. Staff and under the direction of the Board of County Commissioners have taken the necessary step to address this particular nuisance of this property. So through this process, we provided one step forward as to how we can ultimately deal in perpetuity with this particular property. It will eliminate the neighborhood blight and advance the shared interest of public safety. What makes it a little more interesting, this particular approach, is we have a partner with the Olympia School District that we can address this particular issue. So the item before you has two elements. First of all, is for you to consider setting a public hearing for April 19, 2022 at 5:30 in the afternoon, where you will receive public testimony on two actions. One is a resolution authorizing the prosecuting attorneys to commence condemnation of this property. And the second will be related to a proposed interlocal agreement with the Olympia School District that complements this approach. So I believe this has been discussed with the board on a couple of occasions. And why do we ask the board to consider this setting the public hearing this afternoon? I think the urgency of the matter requires that for you to consider doing so. Josh is here. Would you like to add any additional perspective or answer any questions?
That was a great summary, County Manager. Thank you for that. And I would, just echo, this is the culmination of the next step of the board's direction, and essentially clean up this property, and if you can, find a partner. And we're excited that Olympia School District has decided to join us in this, and that's what the interlocal agreement is. I would say there are a couple of items that we might consider in terms of the action. If you would like to add the word condemnation in there, we could make that edit. Also, we have Travis from the PAO's office and Craig Challam from CPED Compliance. If the board would like to consider doing the public hearing at 3:30 or thereafter, shortly following the Tuesday meeting, we could potentially make that edit as well.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
Well, I guess my preference would be the earlier, the better. But I'll just let it go at that. No other questions. Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
I don't have questions on the overall approach. I'm excited about being able to, the neighbors and parents of the school are going to be very excited about what we're doing. But it just strikes me as odd that we have these two things melded into one action. Is that, I don't recall seeing something like that. Does it need to be structured that way for some reason, or?
It was just structured that way for efficiency, Commissioner. We could break it out if you'd like.
So you're right. It is a bit of unusual, but not perhaps out of the norm because we're dealing with the same property.
And is it a public hearing about the ILA with Olympia, or is it about the initiation of condemnation? And we should make that really clear. So
that's what Josh suggested. And this afternoon, you will have a revised motion. My proposal will be after it's in room 280 to receive public comment to consider a resolution authorizing the prosecuting attorneys to commence condemnation and in local agreement to collaborate with the city of Olympia. I think that will probably make it clear, because the main purpose of this is the condemnation proceedings that will need to be clear.
Does that have I assume that's a required matter in which we need to have a public hearing?
For the condemnation, absolutely.
But not necessarily the interlocal agreement.
Usually interlocal agreements do not require a public hearing.
But we're going to allow people to comment on the whole piece.
But I think it is because we're dealing with the same property and we have a partner. And the link is the condemnation proceedings on this property. And I think it will be worth for the public to see the overall approach and for the board to receive an overall comments on everything.
Okay, I'm good then.
Yeah, that's correct. The the legal proceedings need the condemnation public hearing, but we want to take that extra step in transparency to allow input on the ILA as well.
I just want to make sure the public understands what we're taking public, testimony on specifically. If it's everything, it's everything. If it's one piece though, then that needed to be clear. But it sounds like we don't have to limit it to that, so clarity is not always important.
No, but we'll add language for this afternoon. The resolution that is really is to authorize the prosecuting attorneys to commence condemnation. That is the core of this item.
And County Manager, sorry.
Go ahead, Josh.
I just wanted to confirm the language, just to make sure that we got it. After room 280, to authorize the prosecuting attorney's office.
Yeah, well, how about if we touch base after the meeting, Josh?
Sounds good. Great.
Madam Chair.
1 second, Commissioner Edwards.
Okay.
I'll ask a question in regards to the time. I checked the calendar right now, and there seems to be another public hearing set at 3:30, and then after that we have the Transportation Benefit District. I'm wondering if it would be easier to just have both public hearings and then the Transportation Benefit District meeting.
And we want to be respectful of the Transportation Benefit District. That is why we have a 5:30. I don't want to be presumptuous of how many public testimony you will receive, but you are probably correct, Madam Chair, that probably those two public hearings can be handled.
What's the other public hearing?
A7, the low impact development.
That's the low impact development.
I don't have my calendar with me, but I saw like last night that was taken off the calendar.
No, it's on.
It's back on?
Yeah, it's on there.
Because I had the lines
There
through
was
my...
a duplicate calendar appointment. Someone was just deleted.
Okay, so we're still on for the 22nd, which was the date it was supposed to be on. There was just two on the same day.
Yes, yep.
So there still is
Yeah.
on the 19th.
We haven't gotten any public comment on that item up till now, so it would be a surprise if that were a long one.
So that's what I said. I don't want to be presumptuous, but perhaps having those to begin at 3 in the afternoon will be probably good.
Yeah, I mean, that's my suggestion, is either to have them both at 5:30, just so they're not, we're not doing a public hearing and then a Transportation Benefit District and then another public hearing. I would rather have the two public hearings together. I think it would be easier for residents trying to provide public comment.
Okay, we'll change the time to 3 o'clock. And you will see that change in the afternoon. Thank you.
And is that okay with the Commissioner Edwards and Commissioner Menser?
Yes, ma'am.
Commissioner Edwards, go ahead.
Being we're making a few changes there, for clarity, I know we've all been dealing with this issue for several years, but for the public's knowledge, might it be worth putting the address of this particular activity? So it actually has an address, the public will know where we're doing business, just for clarification. I didn't see it on the motion.
We certainly can add the address, yeah.
Thank you.
So the motion will be changed, 3 components. The time will be to 3 in the afternoon. We'll add some language to clarify the intent of the resolution to actually authorize the prosecuting attorneys to commence condemnation. And the rest will add the address of the property.
Okay. Any further questions, comments? Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 6, Information Technology Department, My Telephone System for Building 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You did review this item last week, and this is the next phase in the process. They really started back in 2014, where we're upgrading the telephone system in all the offices and departments in the county. What is remainder on the overall plan is the main campus is Building 2 and Building 4, as they need to, phone system needs to be upgraded. So this particular item is to take the next step in the process to change the Building 2 and the courthouse campus, the telephone system, and the cost is $55,630.29. And Dennis Osorio is here to answer any particular questions.
Dennis, any additional comments?
No, I think the county manager covered it well.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No. You do that last week.
I don't have any additional questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, next item, Public Health and Social Services Department, item 7A, set a public hearing on an amendment to fiscal year 2019 HUD Annual Action Plan and an amendment to fiscal year 2020 HUD Annual Action Plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Before I describe the item, there is a change on the action for you to consider is for the public hearing for April 26th. And considering in April 19, we'll have a couple of public hearings. They have a little more pressing matters to deal with. So this particular action will change for you to consider setting the public hearing for April 26th at 3 in the afternoon. So that change you will be seeing this afternoon. This particular public hearing is to accomplish two things: for you to receive public testimony and two amendments. The amendment to the 2019 Housing and Urban Development Annual Action Plan, and as well an amendment to the 2020 HUD Action Plan. And this is related to the Low Income Housing Institute, and particularly related to the Martin White Phase 2, as well as the Fleetwood Apartments rehabilitation. The overall impact from the funding point of view is $130,000 to move from one to another project. Jacinda?
Thank you, County Manager. Jacinda Stelches, Public Health and Social Services. I just wanted to remind everyone or add that the amendment for program year 19 is transferring $300,000 from vaccines and testing, CDBG, Community Development Block Grant COVID funds from vaccines and testing to quarantine and isolation leasing and operations. So that is the activity happening in the program year 19. And then our county manager just covered what is happening with the program year 20 amendment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
On the motion set for that issue, should that also refer to that as the approved 2020 annual action plan, the HUD action plan, and 2019 HUD action plan? I know it says in the description up above, it mentions HUD, but it doesn't say HUD in the motion. Just wondering if that needs to be in there.
Yeah, we can add the word HUD on the motion.
Kind of clarifies it.
Question, Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, I don't have any questions.
So just to confirm, the motion will include for the approved fiscal year HUD 2019 HUD action plan, adding the word HUD, and also before the fiscal year 2020, also adding the word HUD.
Well, okay, that's what I'm suggesting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you, Jacinda. Moving on to item 8, Public Works. 8A, resolution and call for sealed bids for furnishing a supply of various asphalt materials.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This item you reviewed last week, and just to give a perspective for the public's benefit, this is a yearly action the board considered taking, and this is to, in this case, to authorize the Department of Public Works to call for sealed bids to furnish the Thurston County Public Works supply for various asphalt and road maintenance materials for the annual road maintenance work. In the past, for the last few years, actually, this strategy has been extremely important because it gives us an understanding how much is going to cost the materials for the upcoming year without having to deal every time that we need materials for road operations and maintenance, dealing with the prices every time. This will allow us to set the prices at the beginning, secure the materials, and allows Public Works to conduct a more efficient way the road operations on a regular basis. Mike Loman, the road operations manager, is here to answer any questions or add additional perspective.
Thank you, County Manager. I don't have anything to add. Good morning, Commissioners. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions.
Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, thank you, Mike. With that, we'll go through our standing items, which commissioners will report on board work sessions and assigned committee meetings. The county manager will review the Board of County Commissioners schedule for the week. And we will adjourn at 3 o'clock or shortly thereafter. We shall have 2 public hearings. The first one, public hearing regarding solid waste operations, maintenance, transport, and disposal services contract.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. The board will receive public testimony this afternoon related to the proposed contract with Republic Services to provide transport disposal and services for the next few years here in the county. The board has been appraised of the issue. We have reviewed the contract on a couple of occasions. So really the next step in the process is for this contract to be out in the public and for you to receive public testimony this afternoon. So we'll provide the appropriate script for this afternoon. Jeff will provide the staff's a little bit of overview what the intent of this public hearing is. And also for your consideration, we only have one action for you is to close the public hearing. Depending on the public testimony you might receive this afternoon, certainly we'll follow up and schedule another briefing for you to consider the public testimony you might receive this afternoon related to this matter. Jeff?
Thank you. I don't have anything else to add to that. We're looking forward to the presentation and the hearing today.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, I don't have questions as well. Thank you, Jeff. Next public hearing will be a public hearing regarding ordinance to expand the Board of Health.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. This afternoon, this public hearing, you received public testimony related to an ordinance where the board will be considered to expanding the current Board of Health makeup and membership. This particular ordinance is related to what we call the Ingross Substitute Second House Bill 1152. They passed the legislature back in the 2021 legislative session, which is very prescriptive as to what the makeup of this new Board of Health will be. And this particular new Board of Health needs to be in place by July 2022. And one step in the process before you can consider adopting this new ordinance, you need to hold a public hearing. And again, this afternoon, we only have one action for you to consider, so to close the public hearing. Depending on the public testimony you might receive on this item, I will schedule a follow-up briefing, or maybe I just bring this item for next Tuesday for you to take have a conversation on this. So.
Thank you. Commissioner Edwards, questions?
I guess my only questions would be maybe to Romero. The state hasn't concluded all the direction they're going to give us yet at this point in time, have they?
So what you, I think what you're referring to is the rulemaking by the Department of Health.
Yes.
The rulemaking is currently in a follow draft, and the ordinance addresses that rulemaking. And I will touch base this afternoon in that staff's presentation.
Okay.
How everything relates to the rulemaking.
Thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
There will be a presentation about this by whom?
I will present that.
Okay. So you're going to go through the what the law requires, the structural, like the side rails that we had to operate within.
Yes.
Elected, non-elected, 3 citizen buckets, tribal representative, no majority of elected officials.
I will go in great detail this afternoon related to this particular item. So I'm just giving you the
point,
short answer.
I bring this up because I've been discussing this with a lot of people in the public, and it takes a little bit of effort to help folks understand why 8 really kind of is the minimum, like the minimum expansion. It seems like a big expansion from 3 to 8, but given all the parameters we were operating with, the tribal, representative, the citizens, the cities, et cetera, 8 really felt like the kind of, and the board was trying to not make this, out of control, humongous expansion, but really 8 felt, I think all the commissioners were unanimous in terms of how we felt about let's meet all the parameters, but let's try to keep it as compact as we can within those parameters, and I think that's where we landed.
Yes, and I will touch base in absolutely more detail as to, first of all, what the 1152 really asks or requires us to implement. And the 8 number, as part of the statute, is elected officials cannot be, and the number cannot be more than the citizen representatives, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to be an equal footing. So I will touch base on that because that's how the 8 came to be.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I don't have questions on this. And then Ramiro, you'll be presenting on if we received any written comments on
Yes,
this?
so far we have only received 1 written testimony.
Okay, thank you. With that, we will close those public hearings and then move to our 3:30 Board of Health meeting. Okay, so next is the review of the Board of Health draft agenda for the meeting of March 22nd, 2022. And I'll hand this off to the chair of the Board of Health, Commissioner Tynan, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would call the meeting to order, and as you pointed out, it might be a little after 3:30, depending on how our public hearings go, but we'll get to it as soon as possible. Approve the agenda and meeting minutes from February 8th. And then proclamation and presentations will involve 1. Is that right, Clerk of the Board? Didn't we have 2 that we were trying to squeeze?
Not for March.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking of April. Okay, so the proclamation will be for Developmental Disabilities Awareness Month, and we see Mark Moffitt as our contact. Is he the main presenter?
Yes.
I'm looking at the Clerk of the Board of Health.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions about the proclamation?
No, sir.
Okay. Opportunity for the public to address the Board of the Health along the same lines as Board of County Commissioners, public comment, 4 minutes per citizen. And then the first department item is prescription opioids litigation update with Scott Cushing from the Prosecuting Attorney's Office. And just as a preliminary matter before we get to that, my understanding Kurt will not be present.
Kurt will not be there, so I will try to fill the role of Kurt this afternoon.
You'll be the interim.
I will be the interim.
Public health.
The double interim.
Okay, I just be clear of that, and then, so will Scott be the presenter at this item?
Yes, and also I believe there is you stated correctly last week. There's 2 elements on this. This is an update on the current litigation that we're being part of, and I think there has been a settlement. It's quite questionable. Touch base on that. Here also, I believe Commissioner Edwards wanted to have a little more information related to this issue, and I believe staff has reached out to you.
Yes, I've talked with Kurt about this, but, we've had new development, so I don't have very high expectations to get into
we'll follow up with the specifics at the next maybe Board of Health meeting. Not necessarily this afternoon.
Right.
Okay, Commissioner Edwards, anything on this item? Okay, Commissioner Mejia? No, okay.
No, sir.
All right, and that could be fairly brief. And then we'll get to item 5, which is natural gas appliances and indoor air quality. And Art Starry, our Environmental Health Division Director. Good morning, Art.
Good morning. This is just an item that I was asked to prepare. to look at some of the impacts again that natural gas appliances have on indoor air quality and the people who are most vulnerable to the impacts of that. And so was able to do quite a bit of research and check with folks who are more familiar with the topic than I am, and found out again that what's kind of surprising is the way some of these well, anyways, I've got a presentation which will be highlighting, in particular, nitrogen oxide impacts and how that's a result of combustion of gas and some things that people can do to minimize the impacts, particularly for children. And so that'll be the presentation. It should take about 10 minutes.
Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, sir.
Commissioner Mejia?
No questions, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Art. Look forward to that. Then item 6 is COVID-19 update, and Kurt's listed, but it will be.
Yes, I will fill the role, so I have all that information, and I will probably tag team with Dr. Abdelmalik.
And the thought, Dr. Abdelmalik, I assume that have you had a chance to speak with Kurt prior to, in terms of what the focus of this particular item was about?
My understanding, and I've prepared some slides that I believe were sent out, was a COVID-19 update of where we are in the county, as well as next steps, including as we think forward to demobilization. Is that correct, or are
You hit the nail on the head. Yeah, it's kind of looking forward and what's next and what should people be mindful of as we, given where we are. It's less about where we are, people kind of tracking that, but what happens now and what should people continue to be thinking about as we go, as you call it, demobilization or whatever. I hadn't heard that, but that sounds like around the topic we were shooting for. Thank you. Commissioner Mejia?
No questions, sir.
Commissioner Edwards? No questions, sir. Okay. Board of Health members can then report on any health-related activities or accomplishments. Dr. Abdelmalik can give a health officer's report. And
I'll be ready to provide a report.
Romero will give a update on public health. Dr. A, anything you'd like us to be aware of in advance for your report?
not at this time.
Okay. Any final questions from the Board of Health? No, sir. Okay. Back to you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to review our Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for our meeting on March 29th, 2022. Call the meeting to order at 2 p.m. The Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Commissioner Edwards. Approval of the Tuesday, March 29th, 2022 agenda. Approval of the board meeting minutes for March 22nd, 2022. We'll have a presentation, the proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. For your consideration is for the board to proclaim the month of April 2022 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Thurston County. Gretchen Thaler will be presenting this item before you, and also she will be, I believe she's scheduling guests to come and be part of this presentation. Gretchen.
Good morning, Commissioners. Yes, thank you, Romero. Shelley Willis will also be joining us to bring forward this proclamation, and then I will be reaching out to some other members of our Partners for Children, Youth, and Families group to see if any of those individuals would like to join us as well.
Thank you, Gretchen. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thanks.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment that, this is timely and definitely a priority for partners this year. So thank you, Gretchen.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll move on for the opportunity for the public to address the board, and then county manager's update.
Yeah, I will follow up with any needed follow-up as a result of today's public comment.
And then we have consent items A through D. So the first consent item from the Sheriff's Office is Lake Lawrence Regatta application.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a yearly item the board considers. In this particular case is for the board to authorize allowing the Seattle Inboard Racing Association to hold a race event on Lake Lawrence from April 23rd, 2022 to April 24th, 2022. This organization has already paid a $500 fee. They have gone through the process of review the application, so it comes to for your consideration to approve these applications and for the Sheriff's Office to provide assistance during this event. I see the Under Sheriff Brady is here. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, but this has been an annual event since the 1950s, so I think they've got it pretty well figured out.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No, thank you.
I don't have questions. Thank you, Ray. Okay, next item is item B, a transfer of ownership of 2 donated canines to the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Thurston County Deputy Sheriff's Association and Foundation is a nonprofit organization. This nonprofit organization receives donations from the community to support the Sheriff's Office K-9 program. The foundation, the Deputy Sheriff's Association and Foundation, use some of these funds to purchase 2 canine to replace the retiring of 2 canine units that we have in the Sheriff's Office. The foundation purchased a 19-month-old and a 21-month-old German Shepherd and is intended to donate this to the Sheriff's Office to continue with the training and operations of the K-9 unit. Before this can be accepted, the board needs to take an action to approve the transfer, I believe at no cost to the Sheriff's Office of those 2 K-9 K-9 dogs. Under Sheriff Brady.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioners. So 2 of our canines are K9 Dexter and K9 Jax are both getting up there in age. They're both over 8. And so as part of our commitment to make sure that we do everything we can to retire our canines, before they have debilitating injuries, so we have a regular replacement for them. So the foundation, through a lot of generous donations from our community, have purchased 2 canines, Canine Bowie and Canine Igo, that will replace those 2 dogs. They're currently in training, and they're anticipated to be certified probably in the next week or so. The 2 existing dogs, Canine Dexter and Canine Jax, will continue to work as the new canines kind of get up to speed, and we anticipate that they will retire about the end of August. So these two new canines would replace those 2 canines.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No, thank you.
I do have a couple questions, Ray, and it's mostly curiosity more than anything. What happens to the retired dogs once do they go with whoever their handler is, or what's the next step?
Yeah, so we always make an attempt for the handlers to be able to acquire the dogs. You'll see that come before you. I believe the end of August is we will offer the canine handlers first right, and they'll have the opportunity to purchase their canine partner for $1. And that's typically what has always occurred with our canines. These dogs are obviously they're a very important role when they're at work, but when they're not at work, they're huge members of these people's families. And so our handlers, kids, these are pets to them. And so usually that's where they end up going. And in that case, or in these 2 cases, that is believed to be what will occur.
Thank you. And then my next question is, I'm glad that, you were able to get this, through donations, but I was wondering, for a canine, how much does that, usually cost? What's the cost associated with that?
Yeah, so they do carry some pretty good costs. So just the canine themselves are typically about $10,000 to acquire. Obviously, there's a lot of training and personnel costs. I believe the most current numbers I saw when you factor in everything that goes along with that is about $37,000. And again, we're super fortunate in this community that just the support that we have. A lot of those things are all donated, from kennels to leashes to food. Our food is donated. So we have a really wonderful, supportive community that helps us out. We do have some funds that we have in our canine fund, and we also have an ER&R replacement fund as well. So you may recall previously we had 4 canines working for the sheriff's office. We currently only have 2. But we are actively, we just sent out an announcement here recently. We're actively working to build our canine program back up to either 3 or 4. So you should probably, over the course of the year, you may see additional things come forward to the commission regarding that.
Thank you, Ray. Okay. Any further questions, comments? Okay. Thank you again, Ray.
Thank you, guys.
We'll move on to Public Works. Resolution reclassifying position 34R00941.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As a regular process across the county, in this case Public Works, every time that we have a vacant position, gives the department, the director, the opportunity to assess the current needs of the department and see if any type of adjustments need to be made. In this case, the Public Works are working with Human Resources are determined they would like to reclassify an existing civil engineer position to a senior civil engineer position. This particular position will provide team leadership on the traffic operations unit of Public Works, which currently have 14 staff in that unit. This particular item has a budget impact of, it goes from $8,256 per month to $9,064 per month. That will be an $808, or 10% increase on this salary. This most likely is covered by the road fund. It has no impact on the general fund, and the department is not requesting any adjustments on the current budget allocation.
Thank you. Questions?
No questions.
Okay. Commissioner Menser? Okay. Moving on to item D, the approval of the voucher list for the week of March 14th. Any comments or questions on that item? Okay, we'll move on to department items. First is the Commissioner's Office for A, ARPA Program Evaluation Study.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, this item, I just realized it's not ready for your consideration yet. So we'll, Robin?
I'm okay. I was prepared to speak to this item, but if it's not ready, then.
Yeah, touch base with Jenica. There's a couple of steps we need to take. So we'll move this for a week for us to connect.
Okay, so this item is stricken off the agenda for March 29th. Okay, moving on to community planning and economic development. It's the 2022 Heritage Day Grant Program.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You've had a briefing related to this particular grant that will be the 2022 Heritage Grant Program. For your consideration is to award 6 applications with a total of $29,000. The Heritage Grant Program was open from August 10, 2021 to September 22nd, 2021. And the Historic Commission members went through the review of those applications, have recommended for you to award 6 projects, total again $29,000, which includes the City of Lacey for the Lacey Museum, the City of Tenino, Olympia Heritage Commission, Olympia Historical Society, Bigelow House Museum, South Thurston County Historical Society, and the Rochester Citizens Group is the street hole flooring replacement. For the public's benefit, this is funded by the House Bill 1386, which was enacted into law back in 2005, which set aside $1 for each of the $5 document recording fees. So this particular revenue is specific to address heritage and historical elements of the county. Jeremy?
Any additional comments, Jeremy? No? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Madam Chair, I do not have anything to add to the county manager's great summary of these items. It's always great to get more money back out in the community for historic preservation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No questions, thank you.
Questions, Commissioner Menser?
I don't think so. I missed the briefing, but I reviewed the written material, and if my seatmates are in support of these, I would be willing to take that vote in support.
Thank you, sir. Okay, with that, I don't have it.
The only item, Madam Chair, maybe Jeremy adding on the action at the end for a total of 29,000.
Yes, sir. I'll make that change. I'll work with Amy to make that change.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, then we'll review our standing items, which commissioners will report on board work sessions and assigned committee meetings. The county manager will review the Board of County Commissioners schedule for the week of March 29th, and we will adjourn. At 3 or shortly thereafter, we will have a public hearing, and this is a public hearing in regards to ordinance to amend Chapter 2.02.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You will be receiving public testimony related to amendment Chapter 2.02, which is related to the board, when the board meets and have the regular meetings, as well as when where's the county seated, transparency, and really is an attempt to be transparent as to when the board meets. Under RCW 36.32080 requires the board to hold those public regular meetings. And you have been reviewing this proposed ordinance on just a little bit over a year. And in fact, you held a public hearing at some point on this ordinance. And at that point, it's something put a little bit on an idle situation. The board decided to revisit this ordinance early this year. As a result of revisiting the ordinance, the board decided to hold yet another public hearing, since the last public hearing is probably, I don't know, maybe 15 months old. As you may recall, that hearing, I believe you received 2 public testimonies in person. So I would assume that probably you will receive similar comments on this public hearing. And I will walk in detail as part of the staff's presentation next Tuesday as to what this ordinance is planning to do.
Thank you. Questions? Commissioner Edwards?
I don't have any questions per se, other than this has been lingering for quite a while, and I hope we'll go over kind of the final version at some point there and see where we're at. I've kind of lost track.
Yeah, I shared the final version maybe 3 weeks ago or so, but I can certainly circulate. After this meeting, I will give you a hard copy of the final draft that is before you.
Thank you. Questions, Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay. So with that will end our review of the Board of County Commissioners draft agenda for meeting of March 29th. Next item on our agenda is proclamation and awards.
Good morning, Amy Davis, Clerk of the Board. The proclamation for Women's History Month is included in your packet. We expect members of the Zonta Club to attend to accept the proclamation. Next week's proclamation for Child Abuse Prevention Month is also included, and this is a draft. We have an updated version now with this year's numbers. And Family Support Services and Public Health and Social Services have collaborated on this. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
No, ma'am, thank you.
Commissioner Menser?
No.
Okay, I don't either. Thank you, Amy. Okay, next on our list is advisory boards and commissions.
The 3 applications for the Agriculture Advisory Committee are included. Those are from Glenn Shorno, Chris Dolman, and Celeste Winther. We've received the requested recommendation from the Ag Committee, who recommended Ms. Winters be appointed as a farmer member. So overall, there are 2 vacant farmer positions, 2 vacant non-farmer positions, and we have received a recommendation from the Ag Committee to appoint Mr. Shorno and Ms. Winters as farmer members. And this is for your discussion.
Thank you. Questions, comments, Commissioner Edwards?
Are we prepared to make these yet, or is the point, the direction book, I'm trying to think of the name of the book we're putting it. Handbook done yet?
It has been, I believe our pursuing attorney has some questions, so I have a scheduled meeting with Amy tomorrow to understand what the issues are. So
And I guess we're still waiting on that for appointments, is that what I understand?
I'm sorry, it's coming in a little bit muffled.
Are we waiting until that appointment, not that appointment, the handbook for committees is done before we make an appointment, is that it? Because we got a new one in within the last week, I think, this Celeste person.
yeah, in the Ag Committee review and they provided recommendation.
I have to say, my preference is to make these appointments. But it's one vote.
Okay, Commissioner Menser?
I don't have any questions or comments.
Okay, and I don't have any questions or comments on these. And for me, I'm still not ready to move forward. Okay. Next, I see, Amy, you still have one more application?
Yes, the next application received is from Ken Balsley for reappointment to the Historic Commission as a District 2 member. This is here for your review, and we can circle back next week once you've had a chance to review if you'd like.
District 1 or District 2, Amy?
District 2.
Okay.
Oh.
So District 2.
Okay, questions, Commissioner Edwards?
No, I'd like to move ahead with that as well.
Okay, Commissioner Menser?
Yeah, I'm fine. Mr. Balsey served for a number of years. And we have 5.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble hearing.
Oh, I just said, Mr. Balsey, I know served for a number of years, and we have 5 vacancies, and I'm fine with reappointment.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm okay with moving forward with that application as well for the Historic Commission.
Okay,
We'll have an item for your consideration on the consent agenda for next Tuesday.
Thank you. Okay, with that, if there's not anything further, it is 10:16. Let's go ahead and take a break right now, and then we can come in for, let's go ahead and get done with the PIO check-in, and then we'll go and take a break. So, PIO check-in.
Good morning, Commissioners. Megan Porter, Public Information Supervisor. Work's moving along with the website redesign project. Yesterday, we held interviews, the second round, to hopefully get a public information specialist on board to work on that project with me. I worked with Keely yesterday. We're updating the homelessness webpage and adding some information about the home fund to it. So that should be coming this week. And pending any questions, that's what I have for you this morning.
Questions?
No questions, ma'am.
Commissioner Menser? Okay, no questions for me either. Okay, it is 10:17. We'll go ahead and take a break until we'll do a 13-minute break and just go until 10:30. That way, commissioners, we're ahead of the curve this time around, so we'll be back by 10:30.
You're live, Commissioner.
Back, it is 10:33 a.m. and we left off with the legislative update. County Manager, I'll pass this to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You got it with a piece of orange in my mouth, so hopefully it can come across clear. I have included a final copy on your packet of the summary that you've been tracked, so I'm not going to go through that. But also, as a result of the conversation maybe from Commissioner Minster last week as to where we can find a somewhat of a summary of all the legislative actions that occurred in this legislative session, I have to thank Art Story. He was listening to the conversation and he provided this information from the WASOF organization, I believe. This is a very comprehensive. The title of this, the Signed Act 2022, which give you a very good perspective as to what the legislative actions they really have been enacted. So I don't know out of all this what the governor has signed. That is I don't know. The only thing I can provide to you, and this is what the legislature has passed, but I don't know how the governor is going to be enacted. I think it's in the process to continue to sign those bills.
But everything in here went to the governor?
I believe
got
so.
through the legislative?
Yeah. So here's it really is a very well comprehensive report for your review. I will not be going through each one of those. So what it does in gist is, for instance, on the first page, the agriculture and natural resources is the bill number, and you have who the main sponsor is. Let's take the first one is House Bill 1626. That was Representative Chapman, the sponsor. And a brief description of what it does. It provides authority to the Fish and Wildlife Commission to issue electronic licensing documents, including licenses, permits, tags, stamps, and catch record cards. So, and each one of those has that perspective, including the Senate bills as well as the sponsors. Hopefully that will address some of the questions Commissioner Messer, I believe the board had related to a comprehensive report. And that's all I have for you on that. I'm trying to schedule, I will schedule a meeting with Deborah Manguia to come to the board and just give her perspective in a summary of the legislative session.
I just found this bill right now, but we'll go through questions. I apologize. Commissioner Edwards, questions, comments?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Commissioner Mentor?
I want to ask Commissioner Edwards, I had to leave the VHASO meeting early. Did Mark or Joe discuss I'm looking at policing 1735, which looks like it's trying to help peace officers use force for like voluntary commitments and things like that. 1735, did they discuss that at all?
Yes.
And were they satisfied with what the legislature accomplished?
They thought it was a big step in the right direction, and implementation, some have implemented. I think Thurston County Sheriff's Office has implemented. Maybe Mason County had not.
I have that.
Oh, you've got that. Okay, so anyway, that was discussed. Sounds like it's all headed in the right direction. The only reason some maybe had not done it yet was because they were waiting for their, maybe their legal review or something like that.
Okay.
On the regular lead meeting, I attended yesterday, the sheriff reported there is two key, House Bill 2037, which is provide a definition of the use of force, which is very helpful, as he stated. And also House Bill 1735, which restores the ability for law enforcement to act, which also does work. And I believe as Commissioner Edwards stated, the Sheriff's Office has already changed their internal policy to address the legislation.
So our sheriff's office felt pretty satisfied with these?
I believe the changes on 2037 and 1735, based on the information that we received yesterday from Undersheriff CS, welcome changes.
I have a general question, and this can be something that can be addressed later on. because I think it's more for Maria. I was just looking and under the education or the children, youth, and families section 5847. It requires that employees for public service be provided the information for public service loan forgiveness. I remember when I started out, that was not provided as a new employee, and I was wondering if that's something that we're doing now, or if that's going to be something that we're going to have to be required to do.
I'm sorry, what is the bill that you're keying on?
5847,
What page?
and it's on the back of.
It's not numbered.
Well, they're not numbered. They're not numbered.
About the third page. It's on the back of the third page. Okay.
5847.
5847, is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, 5847. It says requires the student loan advocate to create and provide information on public service loan forgiveness program to public service employees annually. And so I don't know if that affects us.
Yeah, I will follow up with Maria.
What's a public service employee is?
And that was, I'll review this. Thank you for this, Art and Ramiro.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions?
No questions, ma'am.
Okay,
Good morning, I'll go through this, thank you.
yes.
We'll have to look at.
Next item is briefing public hearing decisions pending, and it's the EDC BIPOC Advisory Task Force.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. You reviewed this item last week and attached to your packet was the presentation the EDC, the Command Development Council, provided to you on February 24, 2022, which the intent of this is to form the BIPOC Business Community Liaison. And this is really the intent to address the BIPOC businesses, to identify access and resources. And it's really to form this group that will key on addressing these items. The reason is why it does not require a formal vote by the board, but since the county contributes some of the ARPA funds toward this effort, just want to make sure that you feel comfortable in providing some thumbs up on this. Last week, Commissioner Mejia had some questions related to how this relates to the Chamber's initiative. So I believe Jenica Machado, our Economic Development Manager, is here to attempt to answer that question.
Yes, thank you. Good morning. And so I was able to speak with both the EDC and the Chamber to gather some more information on the requested differences between these two groups. After speaking with both groups, they stressed the importance that there was an intentional effort to not duplicate but complement each other's work. The South Sound Roundtable is focused on networking, marketing, and increasing visibility of businesses and does not serve as an advisory group. The EDC BIPOC Advisory Task Force would look at the entire region's business and entrepreneurial ecosystem, looking at how businesses and technical resources are being developed, offered, and more importantly, how they are or not being accessed by the BIPOC business community. The advisory group will be developing a holistic view of BIPOC business current conditions and needed resources, and will help create feedback loops so that recommendations from the group can be made, received, and acted upon in a way that it meets people where they are. The task force will have the opportunity to start quantifying the work as it relates to access, affordability, and impact by seeking out some data indicators that define the impact of the work.
So questions, Commissioner Edwards?
My only question was going to be probably of the county manager. He said somebody.
Yeah, as part of the ARPA funds, it was an attempt to focus on minority-owned businesses. As a result of that allocation, this came as a as a good way to move forward. And it's not fully funded by ARPA funds. There's other funding partners to fund this effort. So since the board, through the allocation of ARPA funds, contributes to that effort, just to make sure you feel comfortable. And again, we're not asking you formal approval at this point because it's not a legislative action. It's really just to make sure that you're kept in the loop. What is the intended effort, and see where you'd like to go from this. Yeah.
And just, roughly how much and who else is participating, that kind of thing. I don't need that right now.
I don't know if Jenica will have that.
The BIPOC Business Liaison for this year is funded through our ARPA funds and is housed in the EDC. And Myra Pena, who provided part of the update during the board briefing, and she will be the main staff who is coordinating and implementing this group.
But beyond that, they have other funding strategies to have this in place, correct?
For this year, her time is funded by ARPA, but I believe they are looking at how to leverage funds to have the position continue.
Just not there yet.
Not there.
Okay.
Commissioner Messer, questions?
I don't think so. This seems aligned to the piece of this is embedded within what we allocated. And this is just reporting to us how they're going about carrying out. And,
right.
Okay, and this seems in alignment with what I was imagining, so I'm comfortable with it.
I'm not really comfortable with it. We had set aside funding for, we set aside this funding for this specific thing because we had set aside an allotment of funds for minority-owned businesses, which later on we couldn't do, right, because of how the guidelines were written and just how many suits came afterwards. So once that funding was gone, I just don't understand the consensus of this group and why we should be funding it. I'm honestly not comfortable with it. I just don't really see, I understand that it will complement what the chamber is doing. But I just don't see this, kind of what initially we had thought it would be a service for specifically, and it was going to be for that outreach. Robin, I saw your hand up.
I don't mean to interrupt, Commissioner.
Go ahead.
Okay, so while we are not able to have programs under the ARPA that are solely for BIPOC businesses, we are placing an emphasis on BIPOC businesses and giving them an opportunity to apply for these funds. And I believe that part of the function of this task force is to do the outreach that you just mentioned and ensure that people in the BIPOC community not only have access, but awareness and assistance to obtain the money that's available for them. We just can't have it be solely for this community.
And that is also part of Myra's scope of work at the moment. Is she is currently conducting outreach and working with businesses to help complete the application process.
Which, how I saw it outlined, that position is paid separately. I mean, we're funding that position too through ARPA, are we not? We're helping fund that position.
Yes.
So that would be completely separate. She could continue doing that and it wouldn't have to be connected to this specifically. They're two parallel tracks.
And I guess Robin, correct me if I'm wrong, they bill actual time. And so once the grant funds are exhausted, that would, if this piece does not move forward, that would conclude her scope of work.
I believe that's accurate.
Commissioner Edwards?
I guess I'm kind of in the same position you are, but I'm kind of taking your lead as well, because I think you're just more knowledgeable about this whole thing and more kind of in tune with it than I am. So don't hesitate. I mean, just whatever you propose is kind of where I'm going to be going on this whole thing. So I just want to point that out. And I see Robin's got her hand up.
I do apologize, but I do want to add that, I just happen to have the compliance guidelines in my hand for the ARPA grant, because I was looking up something else in it. But one of our requirements under ARPA is to report on what we are doing to engage disadvantaged communities, and this is one of them. So part of our report to the federal government included our intention to move forward with this task force. Now, that does not bind the board by any means, but we do need to report on what we are doing in support of disadvantaged communities. So this, not to say that it has to be this, but it is one aspect of using this funding.
I'm not there yet. So, County Manager?
So I don't know how to respond to that, to be honest with you. This is a strategy that the EDC has provided to the board. It was a presentation provided to you as to how they plan to do the outreach to the disadvantaged business owners, BIPOC community. So at this point, I don't know what will be the next steps. To ask the EDC to let that person go? Is that the intent? Or I think you need to give me additional tools if that's not the direction they'd like to go.
Well, I mean, you know, I can't really vote for this right now. I mean, just with the presentation that we had in regards to Thurston Strong and you know, seeing how much of those funds have been going out and just seeing the struggle that community members are having to access those funds. And I did speak with Michael Cade, and he said that there had been some remediations done, you know, to allow for that process, you know, to tighten that process up and to be more accessible. But again, I said this at the very beginning when we went through the first approval of this. I do not support task force that are just, you know, task force just to be. You know, I've been a part of many where supposedly BIPOC, where no effort or gain has come from that. And you know, I said this very early on, and you know, it's very hard for me to support and stand behind, you know, task force where, you know, I've spoken to several minority business owners, and you know, they're struggling, and they're struggling with you know, accessing those funds. So I'm not there yet. And I you know, Rivera, I really don't know what to tell you, and for, you know, but it was something that I said earlier on. I don't want just another task force that's not going to really be something that's going to that's just going to be a very high level task force. It just doesn't solve the root issues, and I'm just really struggling with it.
So would the board be interested on a follow-up where you can actually, the board explore what the task force is going to do. And maybe based on what I'm hearing, answer your specific questions, Commissioner Mejia, because it appears to have a perspective as to what this group, this task force is going to do. Maybe we can bring back the EDC if the board is willing to do that. For you and the board members to further explore what the task force is planning to do. Will that be something the board will be open, or the board just don't want to do anything related to this issue?
Go ahead, Commissioner Menzer.
I'd just like to clarify what the potential decision point would be. We've allocated money. Do we send a letter saying, send us that chunk of money back? I mean, what is it that we could do if the commissioners wanted to step back from this?
So the board already set aside to this. This is an element in which the EDC particularly is planning to address that allocation of money from the ARPA funds to minority-owned businesses. So, and that's what at the beginning I said, I'm not asking for a formal vote because it's not a formal vote. The board already made the decision to set aside those funds. And this is a subset as to how the EDC is planning to meet the intent they believe.
But it hasn't been, the money hasn't gone from us to them yet.
Not because it's a reimbursable basis.
Oh. But the board could, and I'm just thinking out loud of what the legal possibilities are. The board could say, we want to earmark what we earmarked minus the chunk that was going to this element, and then they would not be able to submit reimbursements for that program, and they'd have to, but they've got other partners, and they'd have to plug that funding somewhere else. I'm just trying to play this out. What we can.
That could be the next.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
We don't know how much. Sorry, we don't know how much that chunk that we're talking about is.
I think the board set aside close to $3 million, as I recall well.
But there were like 4 or 5 programs.
Yeah, and there's several elements within that allocation, and this is one of them. Do you recall how much was that, Jenica, without putting you on the spot?
I would have to look further, but the funds are specifically the amount for the BIPOC liaison position. And considering that position is hired and operating currently for the grant administration piece, it would be the remaining portion after the grant administration is complete.
Commissioner Edwards?
The reimbursement part, I'd hate to not have whatever funding is available to make sure that we did our reimbursement part for our original commitment. I guess that's a concern, but I don't know how much that is. But I just want to make sure that we don't leave somebody holding the bag for expenditures that have taken place, and then we would withhold something. So that's where I'm at.
So, yeah, I think my stance is, I don't mind. I mean, they already did a presentation on this task force, and, I have the slideshow here. And I've gone through it, and, I just.
So what I'm hearing is, at least from Commissioner Edwards and you, Madam Chair, that the two of you are not interested in the task force. I just want to narrow down what your position is.
Yes, sir.
I think that's probably correct, but I don't want to leave somebody holding the bag of when we've had expenditures. That's what I'm concerned about.
Yeah, we have to look at the technical elements of the reimbursement part. But really what I'm hearing is the board is, the majority at least, I don't know how Commissioner Menzer will weigh on this, is not interested in extending this BIPOC task force. So I think I need to touch base with Jenica, see what, based on this decision, what the next steps are. Thank you.
I guess, let me just ask one thing. Doesn't there seem to be, I don't know if wiggle room is the right term or not, but because we're not making an official vote, we're just making a recommendation, and you had said something about, was there additional information forthcoming that we don't have to,
Well, I suggested that, but I believe Commissioner Mejia is not interested.
Oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go along with Commissioner Mejia on this. I feel she's got the background on it. So.
Commissioner Edwards, if you want a presentation, they already did a presentation, right? And they covered this, but if you would like them to come over and ask more questions, I'm always open to that.
I'm good with that. I'm a firm believer knowledge is where you make your best decisions when so that's, I always like to know more.
Commissioner Menser?
I'm sticking with the EDC's proposal, and for the reasons that Robin kind of outlined, so.
Okay. I don't mind a presentation if Commissioner Edwards would like more information. But I'm not sure how much my stance will change.
Okay, let's touch base, Jenica, after this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, next item, Commissioner's item is the Chehalis Tribe Road donation request.
Yeah, this is an item that I brought to the board for as a result of the letter you received back in January 20 this year from the Chehalis Tribe. When the board reviewed this, Commissioner Messer was on the other side of the mountains. So I just want to make sure that I wouldn't be bringing this back because I believe you were interested in having a conversation related to this matter. So I brought this, I had it on the schedule and at that time you were not available. I walked through to Commissioner Mejia, Commissioner Edwards, with the gist of this letter, which is a request for the board to revisit the potential donations of some roads within the Chehalis Tribe reservation. And that specifically is Anderson Road, 188, Moon Road, and 195th. The reason for this reconsideration is they perceived that they didn't receive the services they were expecting as a result of the snow event that we had in terms of plowing those roads. And they said if they were under the ownership of the Chehalis Tribe, they could have done a much better job on that one. So what I have attached to you, this is not a new item. It is a briefing that I provided to the board then back in March 18, 2015, when I was serving as the Public Works Director, which this item was already part of the proposal. We went that far to develop a draft in local agreement, which is included in your packet. So, and as I remember, one of the key elements as to why this agreement didn't go through, there was two elements. The board requested the tribe at that time not to put in trust all those roads, and I believe that was a non-starter for the tribe. And also, we asked to the limited waiver sovereign immunity in the dispute resolution in case we didn't recognize.
Is that number 6?
Number 6.
Okay.
Which that was also not an item that the Chehalis Tribe wanted to explore. That was then. And so at that point when that didn't move forward, then the board at that time decided not to pursue this because I believe it was very essential for the board to make sure that any county roads should be providing access to all members of the public. That is the fundamental obligation of having county roads. And I know that at that time, the Chicago Tribe says, well, essentially they will never close access. But put into trust, that didn't give the county ability to exercise any potential future actions by the Chicago Tribe. That's what I want to make sure that I bring this back, because I know that Commissioner Mesa was interested in listening to this conversation, but unfortunately the last time Commissioner Mejia, Commissioner Edwards listened to my 2 cents on this, you were not here. So I just want to bring this back.
Commissioner Edwards.
Yeah, this is from 15 when you were Public Works Director, right?
That's correct, sir.
Before you got into this, even the temporary role.
That's correct, sir.
And then it seems to me we'd covered the same thing. I believe it was later on in 17. And that board made the same determination for the same reasons, I believe.
So what, if I may, what you may recall is we have joint meetings with the tribal council. And on a series of those meetings, this item continued to be part of the conversation. And I continued to highlight what I thought, what I believe the board stance was, and I think that's the conversation that you.
Right, but I mean, there was also consideration from the prosecuting attorney's office as far as the legal status that would evolve around any of these issues. And so, I mean, it's a good idea, but they're without concessions to these issues that you just brought up. It kind of leaves us in limbo, is my remembering the issue.
Commissioner Edwards? Commissioner Mentor, I apologize.
In the letter, they say that they have acquired all the Grays Harbor County roads within the reservation boundaries back in 2010. So I'm just wondering what makes us special? Does Grays Harbor have these waivers of sovereign and requirements that they don't put into trust? And if not, why did they think that was okay? They just.
I really don't have an answer to that.
Okay. You don't know whether or not those provisions are within the Grays Harbor?
I really don't. I think we have the county engineer with us. He is the current owner of the county roads.
That's putting him on the spot, huh?
Maybe Scott, that may be something to explore what Grays Harbor County has done in terms of donated roads and how they managed to overcome at least the concerns the board had at that time back in 2015, Thurston County.
Yeah, certainly we can look into that. If I do recall from a couple of years back, I do believe Grays Harbor passed a resolution and I'll have to check on that. I don't want to misspeak. So let me check into that and I will follow up.
Appreciate it. And then, that's one thought I had. The other thought I had is just that, nobody on this board was even here in 2015. And, we're learning about the history and it's good to have that continuity. But sometimes when the personalities change, the perspective changes. So if nothing else, I would, if I were to be convinced by council or whatever that there's absolutely no way that we could do this without these provisions, then I would at least say, let's send a letter back to Shayla's tribe and saying, if you want to re-engage on some of these points that we weren't able to get through in 2015, we're willing to have that discussion, kind of holding our ground. But it sounds like in 2015, we were willing to do this with these couple of non-starters, as you called them, about the not putting in trust and dispute. So at an absolute minimum, I would want to engage on that level because it doesn't sound like we've gone backwards. It doesn't sound like we've said, boy, what the board was thinking of doing in 2015 was really crazy. We're saying, no, we might be saying we want to hold this line. My question is, do we even want to hold this line? I'd like to know what Grays Harbor's done. But at a minimum, I think we should be willing to re-engage with the tribe on the same terms that we were re-engaged because they may have new council members who are willing to negotiate some of those points that weren't negotiable back in 2015.
Chair?
One sec, sir. Do you have a follow-up to that specifically?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
I guess I came at this from a unique perspective back then because I, as sheriff for a lot of years, had an excellent working relationship with the Chehalis tribe, all during that period of time, during my 20 years as the elected sheriff. So it wasn't because we didn't have a good working relationship. It was, in the way I remember this playing out, it was these specific items that were causing a problem. And then that problem, maybe it would never come to pass, but then again it might. And that's what the problem was, if I remember. It wasn't the working relationship that anybody had that was on any of the boards, because at different times I was in a couple different positions. And I will say for the tribe, they've always been the best tribe to work with in my estimation. So, but I'm not against checking and see if those non-starters, maybe they would be okay with now. That would change, to me, the whole decision process, because I think it was laid out pretty good by the county manager as to the why. So, but once Scott finds that out, maybe we can.
So on page 2 of the then draft agreement, that was very important, I believe, that at that time from the county's perspective.
2 point, which one are you looking at?
Actually, is for instance, is the I already mentioned the 2.9. The tribe agrees not to place roads described in Exhibit A in trust. That's one. The other one was the tribe agrees to that any acquisition of property from non-tribal owners will follow the Uniform Relocation Assistance Act. And that's the federal requirements that all of us have to follow when we acquire right away. Also, we ask them to follow the county's pest and vegetation management policy. That's 2.3.
I saw that, but that one kind of surprised me. I mean, I don't think that would not be a high priority from my perspective. If it's their road and they're managing it.
I just realized what was in that
Yeah,
agreement.
I did see that, but that was a little bit of a red flag that maybe we were micromanaging or not, or trying to ensure failure of the agreement by putting a lot of details in there that would seem micromanaging.
I might comment when it comes, and Scott will find out about the Grays Harbor County and what they did in 2010, but I've found in the past that just because somebody chose to do something and took a chance, if you will, that didn't make it the best choice. So,
I'm not following.
well, I mean, these two issues that the county manager has just pointed out.
Yeah.
If they didn't go, if they weren't in here and things didn't go well, then you're taking a chance. And that was the issue, or one of the issues as well. Boy, you're stretching my memory bank here. That's going back quite a while.
It's interesting that, at that time, item 5, which is audits and inspections, so until December 31st, 2022, that would have been this year. The records of the parties related to any matter covered in this interlocal agreement and not otherwise privileged shall be subject to inspection. I think that they had an issue with that as well.
Wasn't there something in here that any kind of dispute or something was gonna be heard by our court, the Superior Court or something?
Yeah, it's 6.2. It is intended that any disputes between the parties concerning this agreement or interpretation of deed or property should be resolved by parties through direct oral discussion, and as such possible, then through the dispute resolution framework. And I think, and also what we agree, I believe, well, no, I think we were tending to agree that if, let me find that section.
It seemed to me there was something in here about And that didn't go over very well either. I think they wanted it in the tribal court. But I could be mixed up
And
with some
that
other
was an
stuff.
attempt to, because I think from the prosecutor attorney's office at that time was no way the county could accept going a legal dispute of anything in front of the tribal court.
In the tribal court, I think that's what it was.
And we, at some point, we suggested, as I recall, going to federal court. And in that, federal court will not probably weigh in because this is a contractual agreement in the state, so we'll have to go back to the Superior Court. So it was a big circle. Now remember, it was a big circle.
It's kind of coming together, yeah.
Commissioner Mejia, I'd sure like to hear if you had any 2 cents that I missed a couple weeks ago.
No, I like your point in regards to getting input from Grace Harbor and how they were able to do it, and see kind of how it's worked out for them. So getting that input, I think, is very important, because it's obviously worked out for them, and seeing, you know, how we can move forward. I don't remember my exact comments that I made a couple of weeks ago, so I apologize about that. I'm not able to provide much input on that. I know that the county manager did give us some history on this and why it went the way it did. But again, I'm open to having these suggestions. I know that it's really impacted them, and so if we can come out, you know, for a resolution, and Commissioner Menser's right, you know, maybe now they would be more amenable to something like this where they were not before. And maybe we would be amenable to other changes as well. So I think we starting these conversations. I mean, I don't think any harm can come from that.
I mean, get down to the bottom line is like, if a workable agreement would serve the public better. I think they've made a pretty compelling case, you know, using the if they've got equipment, they've got staffing, and because of these jurisdictional tangles, we're not getting service out there, like, you know.
This is a little mini argument of growth management.
So maybe follow up when we can hear.
Yeah, Scott will follow up with what Grace Harbor County did in terms of donating those roads, and we'll bring back this item when we get that information from Scott, and continue to explore this option, because at this point I was not suggesting anything. I was just giving the framework of the history behind this.
I was also concerned that we somehow respond to them, you know, just even if it's thanks but no thanks, you know, just the courtesy of having a response is important. So I don't know the timing of all that, but this letter's been sitting here since January 11th, so, or I got it on January 20th.
I think it came in on the 20th. It was written on the 11th, but it came in on the 20th.
Proceed.
Okay. If there's no additional comments on that, we'll move on to public testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I briefly mentioned earlier today, we have received in the Commission's email system close to over 100 emails. And this is related to a timber sale transaction here in Thurston County, where DNR is planning to harvest, you know, the timber associated with in this property. There's what they call is the crush timber sale.
A what?
Crush, C-R-U-S-H. So we, with the help of Thomasina Cooper and working through all this, the gist of those emails that we have received is for the board to consider, the commissioners to consider stopping the sale and stopping the harvest of this timber. On this website, there is a statement asking the general public to send this request to the Washington State Lands Commissioner.
That is the DNR.
Yeah, DNR.
Yeah.
So for some reason, citizens have been confused as to what commissioner is this request sent to. So I just want to make sure that I circle back with the board that will have received those.
Do we have that?
No.
Oh, okay.
And so what we are going to do is we are going to draft a formal response to all those emails stating that really that request and those emails should be forwarded to the Washington State Lands Commissioner. Because really the Board of County Commissioners does not have any oversight on the DNR activities.
Where is this supposedly taking place?
This is located,
I mean, the schools depend for a lot of their revenue on these harvests that take place.
I just want to bring this to your attention.
In this paragraph here says, profits from the timber sale are intended to benefit Thurston County and help pay for school construction. However, the state superintendent of public instruction has publicly stated that the money is not needed for public school construction, and the money that Thurston County will receive represents an almost insignificant fraction of the overall county budget. Thurston County has not taken a stance on this timber sale or expressed an opinion on whether the benefits to the county are worth the damage that this timber sale will cause to the environment and the popular hiking and biking trail.
But where is it? Do you know, sir?
I don't know exactly where it is. I mean, we're talking about Capitol Forest somewhere.
I mean, they have ongoing timber sales up there all the time. I don't want to get in the middle of that, managing that forest.
How much do we receive from timber sales?
What's that?
How much do we receive?
I think Robert, correct me, we're probably close to 350,000 a year. Does that sounds right?
But schools,
No, the schools do.
they get their bulk of their money from these timber sales.
Yeah, outside of the county's.
And there might not be a project today that's earmarked for that money. But if the superintendent of public instruction doesn't think there's an issue, I'd like to get some money from him for our school projects. We've got 3 schools going on out in Yellow, and we paid for that with local funding.
Did Robin, did that amount sounds correct, or am I?
There are, I'm trying to look for the numbers right now. There are 3 different types of timber revenue that the county receives that is divided between all the different taxing jurisdictions, and depending on where the timber sale is, where the timber is, that kind of governs the taxing jurisdictions that receive the money. The one thing that is true in any given year about timber revenue is it's extremely unpredictable. There have been years when the county has received less than 100,000, and there have been years where combined it's close to 2 million. So it's very much a crapshoot. The particular revenue stream we're talking about right now, I think last year was around 300,000.
Well, from my perspective, I'm not interested in interrupting the Department of Natural Resources on their forest management, because that forest management, a lot of it goes towards schools. And I think we need to continue. I mean, they harvest every, I don't know, I think 40 years now is a time period that they harvest. Matter of fact, all the mills are pretty well shut down that handle any of the big lumber. So it's just on a regular cycle, and they replant as well. They harvest and replant. And
I have a question in regards to, I mean, if we opposed it, like, do they listen to us, or like, what does that do? Does that do anything?
we don't have any authority that I'm aware of.
That's, you know, I don't think we have any authority, even if we say we don't support this, like, it's not going to change anything, is it?
So I think that DNR is making a sincere effort to ensure that however they change the program does not harm local taxing jurisdictions. So they're giving us an opportunity to comment on their proposed method of changes and to say, hey, if you do it this way, we're going to lose money. So I haven't had an opportunity to really look into what the proposed changes are, but I think that if we said, no, you can't change anything, that no, we wouldn't get anywhere. But if we were to give a thoughtful analysis, if we really thought it would bring harm to the county, I'm sure that they would pay attention to that.
Thank you, Robin.
The reason that I bring this item for consideration is because of the public comment that we have received. And just give you a taste of what the public comments, for instance, stop the logging of crushed timber sales woods is to addressing to the board. Obviously, the board doesn't have the ability to stop that. And that seems to be somewhat a message that a lot of citizens have taken this and sent it to the Board of County Commissioners. And so they're asking for the board to stop the harvesting of this trail. So really the board doesn't have that ability, if I may. If the board is, my suggestion is for us to respond to these public comments in terms of maybe they want to send those emails to the land commissioner.
I think that makes way more sense.
But if the board likes to explore this option for the board to send a letter to the DNR expressing a particular position, that's different. That was not the intent of this. That is why I brought this item before your test. That was not the intent, but certainly is within your purview.
I'm personally in favor of letting those folks that communicated with us for one reason or another, that just let them know they're sending it to the wrong location. Here's the address. DNR, Washington State.
That was my suggestion, but certainly whatever the board likes to proceed with.
Commissioner Menser?
Well, there is an issue about legacy forests and there's a lot more, I just heard about this today, and there's a lot more context that I would need about, legacy forests are essentially like, well, it's like old growth light. They've been around for 100 years, trees, and they're more than average age, and maybe areas that we should think about trimming or ceasing cutting. I don't know what percentage of capital forest falls in that category, and I don't know. I'm going to look a little more into this, and I may submit comment of my own, but I certainly don't mind if the board lets folks know that just for those folks who did, I think they're asking us to weigh in, but for those folks that may have the misconception that we are the commissioners that make the decision, I certainly would like that to be clarified. Because the economics of all this is, a little, I don't have that context sitting here right now in terms of what the schools need and what stopping this would mean. Does it mean they just move over to the next legacy area and cut that? I'm gonna learn more about this because I did just hearing about it this morning.
Just as a point of interest on this particular topic, I'm not available for the next timber caucus meeting. But I'm told you're not available either.
Okay.
But I do have an agenda. If you would like to look at it, maybe get part of it. I'm at a county risk management.
I might be able to grab a swath of it. So
okay, so why don't you get a copy of that same one? Because I was thinking I might be able to do the same thing. Just go sign in for a particular segment of the discussion.
Okay.
Okay.
When is the meeting?
I want to say it's on Thursday, but maybe it's on Friday
of this week.
Yeah.
If it's Thursday afternoon, I'm available. I can attend.
I can grab that real quick.
Both commissioners are busy.
And that'd be great because I'm in Santa Recovery Council.
Okay. If it's Thursday afternoon, my schedule is open, so I can attend that. But yeah, for me, I would like to know a little bit. I guess I'll go through and try to find out, because, I would like to know more information on, like, what specific area is it? I'm in agreement with the board to refer those folks who have sent us an email, letting them know that, to please send the request, to DNR, and that is not really within our power or jurisdiction.
Okay, so we'll respond to those emails. We'll generate a formal response. But if the board wants to take a position related to the sale of the harbor, that's a different conversation. Certainly the board can exercise that at any time. And when ready, let me know, and certainly we can engage in that conversation. And certainly I'll draft a letter whatever the board decides to take a position on this matter.
Thank you. And Commissioner Edwards, did you?
Yes, I found it. It is March 24th between 1 and 5 p.m. And it's a Zoom meeting online.
Okay, I can do it. So I'll have
And
Sarah,
this is the agenda that I've got, so I'll give each one of you a copy.
I'll attend, Commissioner. You said you had Salmon Recovery Council?
Yeah, I'm going to be tied up, so.
Okay.
Oh, so it wasn't going to work for you?
No.
Oh, okay, well then I'll give this to Commissioner Mejia. A copy, because I need it too.
Yeah, I'll make a copy.
Okay.
Distribute it. Thank you.
Okay, so that concludes public testimony, County Manager?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, now to other commissioner items, and we have 30 minutes. So we have way more time than what we usually do. So Commissioner Edwards, do you have any commissioner items?
There was I want to say a burn study back in 14 or something about remodeling the courthouse or something like that. Now, I'm not sure.
Ming study?
What is it?
Ming?
Ming, yeah, that's what it was. And we've talked about, how much money our Plan B or whatever it is that we're going to do remodel and stuff. Have we got that broken down to theoretically what the cost was possibly going to be? And the reason I bring that up is when we did something for the election center, the cost is like 10 times more potentially than what we initially thought it was. So I'm just wondering, do we have anything? Have we kicked that around? Is that part of our study process? So I guess it's a question for the county manager.
So first of all, related to the Mudman.
The what?
The Mudman comment that you made, that's the election building.
Yeah.
The staff never provided that initial cost estimate. Just want to clarify that.
I thought
So
we had a
the
discussion on
staff didn't come back. And
I don't think it was anything official.
I just want to
Okay.
be clear, the staff never put in the position a number in front of the board. And because we knew that we need to come back with a little more essence as to what the cost was. We just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Related to the study, we can probably go back, but I believe the study was predicated on the whole,
The whole project?
the whole project, including all the offices and departments. For the overall project, the courthouse project, at that point it was decided to be in the city of Olympia, old city hall property. So that was the study, it was leading to that, the overall project. We can probably take pieces of that study and the consultant that is going to be coming and start working on the courthouse campus certainly will utilize some of the studies previous in the past, performed in the past. So is there any specific information you'd like to see?
No, I just wondered, I even think we talked about maybe having something about a work session coming up on this particular topic, I thought. We're having a consultant come in and give us an estimate. Is that it? Maybe that's.
The board authorized the request for proposals, also the board authorized signing the contract. And we're finalizing the contract with the.
Oh, okay, so we are moving
Yeah, we're
forward.
moving forward. And I remember it being specifically discussed that the contractor was gonna make all the use of previous
Right.
work that
okay.
that he could,
Because
although some of it has to be
Because they
updated.
already, there's a lot of space needs, space analysis, current, future. So the consultant is not going to redo all that, it's gonna utilize some of that baseline, start meeting with the stakeholders to start determining how we can better utilize this space.
Over the weekend, I ran into Sam Reed, former county auditor, back when this building's opened. And he was talking about how these buildings, because they were kind of done, with limited funds, on the cheap. I wasn't gonna say it, but you said it. They don't even have thermal pane windows. He said they were done on the cheap, but he said they weren't even, even in 1978 or whatever, they were already not enough space. They were already full and bursting at the seams in a sense, not to the extent we are now, but even made that comment that even in the 70s, at the time they were open, they weren't really adequate enough space. That was just kind of interesting.
Robin, can you provide a status as, I think we're currently negotiating the scope of work with the consultant, is that right? Should be probably nearing completion.
Right. I think I have a current proposal for my review. We are within days of signing, and it is for pre-design work on the buildings on the courthouse campus. And it does build on 2 prior courthouse studies plus the Ming study. It becomes a foundational part of this, so they're not starting from scratch.
Do you know, I'll just do a follow-up to this particular topic then. Is parking also included in there? And parking means some of these trees that are now this big, that were this big 40 years ago, that are damaging our roof. So I just wonder, is that going to be taken into consideration, adjusting the parking area?
I'm sure it will be, Commissioner. It's a request to do a layout of the best possible use of what we have here on the hill.
Okay.
Within the funding constraint, I'd like to really emphasize that.
Okay.
As you can probably imagine, if money was not an issue, the project could grow and do a lot of things.
Oh, sure.
But we are cognizant and we have made sure the consultant understands the parameters of the funding. The board and the budget is for consideration a $50 million bond to address the needs of this upgrading this facility. So that is paramount, I believe, at this point.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe the Olympian is going to be running an article. I had an interview with Martin yesterday, and he was asking questions about the purchase of the new building and how that plays a role in the overall, so I provide a perspective in terms of what we intend to do. So that might be coming up in the next day or so.
Is that purchase coming up? Is that coming up?
It should be, we should be near the closing date of that building.
Oh, okay.
We're on our way to escrow.
Okay. Okay, that was my question, ma'am.
Thank you. Commissioner Item, Commissioner Menser?
No, would you?
Okay, and I don't have one either.
What, 20 minutes to spare, commissioners?
I can fit it 20 minutes.
You're gonna get spoiled.
Okay, well, thank you all very much. With that, we are adjourned.
Thank you.